If you're a designer or run a creative agency, I want you to think about what happens after you send that beautifully designed 70-page PDF brand book to your client. Of course, that's a metaphor. It goes into the one in the corner, but who's keeping track? That's to dramatically say that it gets buried, lost in their downloads folder, and 6 months later, you're getting emails asking, hey, can you send me your logo files again? Look, I've been stuck in this cycle for years too, and today I'm going to show you the solution that has transformed how I deliver brand guidelines to clients. Now, I switched from PDFs for one main reason, but two really good reasons. One is that brand books are just outdated. Every time you need to make a change, whether it's adding a new logo variation, updating colors, or adding brand photography, you have to get back to your design file, re-export the entire PDF, and redistribute it to your client. And then you have version 1, version 2, version final 1, version actual final, version 7. The whole thing becomes overwhelming, and if you don't get lost, then your clients are bound to. The second reason you move away from PDF brand guidelines is that they just eat your time, effort, and profitability as a designer and freelancer. Digital brand system is just better for everybody involved. It's better for your clients. Everything lives in one place. The guidelines, all the assets, the usage examples. The entire team can access it with just a single link instead of like sending and forwarding emails and those horrible Office Outlook chains. And it's easy to share across departments with vendors and partners and so on, and also way easy to keep updated. For you as the designer, it means a number of positive things. Better file management. No more, where did I save that? Or where should these things go? It makes crystal clear your delivery. Your client knows exactly where to find everything that they're looking for. It also adds legitimate value to your service, allowing you to charge more and keep those ongoing fees going for maintaining their brand guidelines and updating them when they have changes. And best, when clients actually implement your work properly, your work looks better in the wild. All of this helps you increase the value of your proposals, differentiate yourself from competitors who are still sending PDFs, and ultimately create better new revenue through upsells or retainer services. Today, I'm going to walk you through a real-life brand guidelines build using Bravemark. Now, Bravemark is an online brand system platform built specifically for freelancers and studios, smaller agencies, to deliver brand guidelines and assets in one interactive place. You can think of it as taking everything you'd normally put into a PDF brand book and making it live, searchable, interactive, and always accessible. You get to share that link and you can update it instead of 37 PDF files and Google Drive links, so that everything's nice and tidy in one coherent space. Plus, there's not a terrible learning curve. You can drag and drop to build custom brand books, upload all your assets, and give clients a professional branded link that they can access as long as you maintain your account. Let's take a look at what we're building today. We're going to take this real client, Elite International Soccer Training, and walk you through a complete build of their brand guidelines. Now, everything has been done for them. They have their brand, they have brand photography, they've got a website. All these things are performing well for them, but they don't have brand guidelines, so they can't publish it themselves, and I really need to get on making it for them. So we're going to do it live together to see how Bravemark works and what you can deliver your clients. Let's jump in. First, you're going to head to bravemark.co and create an account. There's a free plan in case you want to test the waters with me. I know you've done this a million times, so I'm not going to dwell on how this login works. But I am going to ask you, if you're going to try it out, use the link below to support videos like this. It might even be up on the screen somewhere, I'm not sure. But just note that they have paid plans that unlock more project and asset uploads. Plus, you can remove the pesky platform branding. Stick around to the end, and I'll make sure that that discount code saves you a little bit on any plan that you sign up for. All right, once you're logged in, you have a really simple dashboard. It's super simple, super clean. On the left, you've got general navigation, like finding your projects, notifications, discover designs, and everything you want to be able to do in your Bravemark account. And really the canvas is bare and open for you, and we're just going to go to create a project. Now I'm going to name this something that makes a little bit of sense. And while there's a wizard recommendation, which helps us follow a few steps to get some of the initial blocks down, we're going to go with a blank canvas. That way we can see what we're building and what each block does along the way. I love me a dark mode. We'll stick in dark mode, and we'll create a new project. And here's what I love about Bravemark. This is a visual builder. It should be something you're familiar with. In the big heaping center here, we have our canvas. And on the right, we have tools and assets that we can bring in, plus a little bit of navigation and some settings for each of those assets. Many of these are self-explanatory, like a section title, grids, logos, images, text, typography, color palette, social media, video, and spacers. And we can do different things within each of those blocks as a way to customize our brand guidelines and make sure it feels relevant to what we're doing as designers and also functional for our clients. The first thing I'm going to drag in is an intro slide. I mean, that makes sense. And then once you have something selected under the canvas over here, you can see that you now have different styles, you have different settings, and a whole suite of different things that you can change to make it feel like yours and also useful for your client. So we could do standard, or we can do an edge, which puts our logo or image down at the edge. You do something minimal, something Bauhausian. There's a logo at the top and something over here. We can move it to the left, move it to the right. We can do classic and let it be something simple. Remember, this isn't this phase where we're designing things for our client. This is the phase where we're trying to deliver something to our client that's useful and usable. I'm going to go with the standard, and then we can start to title these. So if you say this is our petite title, this is our main title, and then there's an introduction here. You can see there's already some invisible grids that are happening. These aren't things that we're changing. We're just designing within these standards. So maybe the standard one doesn't work for the word guidelines at the size that I want. And there are a number of things I could do. I could change the text size to medium instead. Now it takes up a little bit less space. But if I like that large and in charge sort of look, I'll do here. And maybe I'll move it to the edge case. Maybe I don't want it to be edge. I did like that Bauhaus one, so we'll use it here. I'm going to change this title all the way to something that makes a little bit of sense. And eventually I'll go in and change this. But I want to show you now we have these titles, and if there was nothing here, then it wouldn't show up. We'll undo that with the Command Z. And I can also change the colors of these. So if I wanted something to be red, I can make it red. If I wanted it to be blue, so on and so forth. I can also pull in hex codes. And now I know that you're starting to wonder about why won't I pull in the brand colors and the brand assets that I have? I'm going to show you where we're going to pull those in. So the reason that I pull in a block at the beginning is so that we can start to see where the changes are going to take place and what things are going to look like inside of these modules. We just want to have something there so that we're not editing and doing something blindly. So like I said at the beginning, in this navigation portion up here, we have some elements. There's a desktop view. There's a mobile view in case we're anticipating our clients accessing this on mobile. There's our modules. And then there's some settings. And in here in our settings is where we're going to tailor the elements and sort of typography colors. We're going to put in the brand guidelines that we're actually going to use and talk about in this layout. So we can add all sorts of things, the project title or that project description. We can add our client name, our client website. We add a cover image, which shows up sort of like a thumbnail in our profile. And also if we make this public so that other Bravemark users can see it and learn from our stuff, it would show up there. We can have a favicon for our custom branding. If we do have PDF guidelines that we're importing and using from, we can upload those. But then we get into some of the really important things for building our brand guidelines, which is this theme section. Now we can choose a grid style. I'm going to leave it at borderless for now, but you can see if we choose Bento, now all of a sudden each item gets a little box. If I do borderless, it just pushes those things to the edge. But even in our Bento one, you can see if we change our canvas color, now we have Bento boards that have a certain color and the backdrop that picks up a different color. I'm going to cancel that, go back to default. And now you can see other things like our module title colors and our icon colors and all of our typography things, from headers and sections to body copy and so on and so forth. And then down here at the bottom is where we get to add in our custom fonts. So for Elite International Soccer Training, they do have 2 fonts that we're going to be using. So I'll be uploading the 2 fonts added here, and then I'll show you how we're going to bring in the colors after that. So now I've uploaded the fonts that I'm going to be using these brand guidelines. Antonio Regular, which is their display font, and Active Grotesque. And I've used Active Grotesque just in the regular and bold versions. I'll probably also make those ones the only ones downloadable for them. But we can go in now and set the themes for our font. So now if I select the master heading title font, you can see it pulls up all the fonts that are available to me. Bravemark's built in with Google Fonts, so there's like a bajillion and a half fonts that are in there. You might not even have to upload your own. If you don't have to, so let's say, I think Antonio is actually in here. Yes, Antonio is a Google font, so I might as well just include that one, and we will select. Now you can see my master header font is Antonio. I'm going to select the medium version because that's what we're using in their brand materials. And next I'm going to do the same thing for my other title fonts because Antonio is what we're using in their brand, and so it should be reflected in their brand guidelines. And now all 3 of my headlines, my master header, my section titles, and my title font are all Antonios. I'm again change those to medium because we're using the medium version. Now let's get to our body font. Our petite font, we're going to change that to Active Grotesque. I'm going to leave it regular, say save. My body font will also be Active Grotesque regular. and my body bold font will be active, grotesque, bold. Crazy. So now I've got all my default fonts in there, and you might be wondering, like, what about the colors? What if I want to bring colors in? Let's do that with a module. I'm going to go back to the desktop view because I'm building on a desktop, and one of the modules I'm going to bring in is going to be a color palette. Now the color palettes are pre-built, they're ready to go, and they're really lovely in what they're going to be building. If you have just a few brand colors, it makes sense to just use one color palette to use these 3 or 4 brand colors, and you're off to the races. If you have tiered structures, the strategy might be to add a primary brand color palette as one block, then use another section title and do a secondary color palette as a second block, or even more than that if there's campaigns or CPGs or different products that have different color palettes that you want to outline separately. For Elite, I know the owners and I know how they sort of function, so I'm going to make sure that there's a primary block and a secondary block because I don't want those secondary colors running rampant. So with this color block selected, you can see there's a module title. We'll name it something smart like primary colors. And again, there's settings for each of these. They can be landscape or portrait. They can be accordion if you want to do this great animation. Like, we don't have to do anything, and Bravemark is going to animate all these things for us. So with each color palette selected, you can see the swatch name changes, so does the hex code. And you can also input CMYK or Pantone versions or even palette proportion. For us, I'm going to say this is our red, and they don't have anything tricky. They have a black and they have a white. Now I also have this extra color here, and we can just go up to the color swatch and hit the little trash can and it'll go away. Easy as that, we have primary colors. I'll go back into my modules. I'm going to add a secondary color palette. Their secondary colors, they have a helping orange, and with that orange, they have a medium gray and just a light gray. They also have one more black that we use for UI elements. I'm going to include it in here, but I anticipate them using just a solid black. So now that we have our fonts built in and we've done our color palettes, those things become accessible to us everywhere throughout our project. So if I go in to change something else, I can pull from those aspects and those elements, and I'm building right away, sort of like a really nice cascading CSS sheet if you're building a Webflow, or some Figma elements if you're used to building there. Whatever it is, you can build the same sort of structure of like, let's do this thing at the beginning so that it's easier to proliferate and build the guidelines coming out of that. For example, if I want this heading up here, the header title, to have a background color, instead of going in and using a hex code or guessing what number it is, I can just select the palette, and you can see that my brand swatches are now included in my options. So I can make it our red or our black or our mid gray or whatever else it might be. I'm going to use the mid gray, and then I'm going to go up here and change the header title. Now this is a really small UI icon next to the title of what it is, but you can go in here and you can choose and select which element to use and pull in. I'm going to use black because that white just didn't work. Next, we're going to go back to our heading title, and I'm not yet going to upload a logo, but I am going to add a background image because it really gives us a lot of power. I'll choose add, and then I'll upload. Luckily enough, we've done some brand photography for them, so it's really nice and easy for us to pull in nice images. And as soon as that loads, it starts to feel like their assets. You can see with just a few changes, the uploading the typography and the colors, now I have this asset that feels like the brand that we've built for them, and it's going to be easy to access. You can access their colors already, and now we'll get into some other things like logos and typography. Now, one thing I love about Bravemark is that it automatically builds a menu for you. So for somebody who hates building navigation into websites, it's really nice that when you start to bring in section titles proper, it'll build an automatic menu that drops down and users can just click on and navigate straight to what they're looking for. So if I go over here to section title and I bring in something because this is a section title and I want it to be colors, for example, maybe we'll name it brand colors. I know that's the way the client thinks. I like this to be pretty large, so we'll go medium. And there's also some text here, which I could start to set in some text. This is just a bunch of gibberish so you can see what's going on. But it's pulling in from my titles instead of something else, and it falls underneath there. Now I'm a little particular about how things get built and the typography of things, and this isn't quite what I'm looking for. So I'm going to hack a couple other systems to make it look like something I'm proud of. So if I go back up into my modules, I want to pull out this grid component. And the grid component, you can see it's going to let me add some other things in here. Now at the moment, I can't add a section title to my grid. It doesn't like the way that the components stack, and it breaks down the navigational aspect of the build. So let's hack it. First, we'll pull this section title up and above this grid. I'm going to get rid of my text here, and then I'm going to select this tricky little element here, which is hide from view, but it includes it in the menu still. So this will be linked in the menu, but it won't be linked in the view of what clients see because it's still not doing layout wise what I'm hoping for. Instead, when I select my grid, I'm going to go and add text to one side, and in the other one, I'm also going to add text over here. Now I can style each of these separately and independently. So instead of having a body copy here, I'm going to add my title to this side. I'm going to choose to the line at left. I'm going to choose that text size to be maybe extra large. And now I have my paragraph over here that I can style and edit independently. And now you can see that this is a much nicer layout. It matches what I'm doing in the Behance project and documentation for them. It matches typographically what they're doing on their website. And it helps me build and block, still have the key features that Bravemark really gives us, which is that navigation and link. You can see since I've added that title up here, now I have this little 3-bar hamburger menu that I can click to drop down. You can see brand colors right there. If I click on brand colors, it snaps me immediately to this section, again, which is hidden so that users don't see it. It helps me navigate right to my brand colors. Now I'm going to go again. This time I'm going to add a spacer, so there's a little bit of a gap. I'll add another section title down here, and this one's going to be called Typography. Again, this one doesn't matter. I'm going to hide it from view. Styling-wise, it doesn't matter, I should say. And then in my components, I'll add a grid. I'll add text to one side, go back, text to the other side. We'll left align this because that's just how I roll. And this one, we're going to clear all of the text. We're just going to add this title called Typography. Left align, and we'll change this one to extra large, which is what we have up here in our brand code. Now you can see how this is starting to build out. It's really evenly paced. Nothing crazy is going on, but it's so easily structured and so quick to manage. Now typography sections are already pre-built for us. So I can pull in typography and I'll drop it under this grid. And you can see right away, it's going to pull in this like pre-populated typography thing. Really great for us. I'm going to name this title Displays and Headings because that's what I'm going to feature here. Gilroy isn't what we're using Antonio. And now I get to choose a number of other things that happen. We can choose the typeface weight, the display style. There's a font name override, the font accreditation, which is automatically pulling from Google. So if you're a type designer, you freaking love Bravemark. It's pre-populated this sort of ABC text, but it can also populate this grid of A, B, B, C, C, so on and so forth. It can pre-populate pangrams, or you can build it whatever you want to be customized. However, I can change some spacing here, and I can also override some width. So right now it's set to a default of 500 pixels. I can change that so it blocks out or goes 100%. I'm going to do full width because I just like the flexibility of a full width. And now that it is full width, that text doesn't feel quite right. So I'm going to change it to large, and there it goes. Now it feels like I'm a designer making typography. So I got my displays and headings in here, and here's where it gets really lovely. Is if you do have really custom typography, you do have custom fonts that they've licensed appropriately, you can add assets that your clients can then download. So I'm going to upload Antonio, and Antonio is a variable font, so I'm just uploading one file so you can see how it works. When we get to Active Grotesque, I'm going to show you how it works when we upload multiple files. If they need multiple TTFs or OTF files or web fonts, whatever it might be. You can see here too that Bravemark is prompting you for different file types. So if there's different files for web or screens, you can upload it here. That would be our WAF files. You can see other ones like print or CMYK, that would be our TTF or OTF files, or something else that we might have specific for this client. We can also add comments. So I'm going to say, this is your display font. And if you haven't noticed while I've been editing this, that now since I've added the download and the comment, this module has gotten 2 new icons. Here's a download icon for your client to just download the assets I've added. And here's a comment icon. And if you click on it, you can see it pulls up the comments about this section. All these things are built automatically, which is just amazing that we don't have to build a UI and manipulate everything, but it just comes in nice and easy. This too, if I want to change this color away from white, maybe I want to push it back and make it a gray, I can make it red, apply that, and now you can see I've got red text that I pulled right from my color palette at the beginning, and it's just going to start to flow and roll really easy. So we're going to add the second block for typography. This time we'll do it speed mode. We're going to do typography. We're going to name this body font. We're going to change it to Active Grotesque regular. We're going to leave the typeface weight at regular and the display file to default. We are going to override this just to Active Grotesque. We'll remove the accreditation, change it to our nice little grid, make it large, override our width to full width, add my downloadable assets, add a comment, and just quickly change the color of those assets. I don't know how long that one took, but way quicker than our first one when I'm talking through it. So now, so far, we have a section title, which just looks great. We have easily to navigate brand colors and easy to set up and navigate typography sections. Last, we're going to add a colors and then a photo section. So doing the same steps I've done before, I'm going to add a grid for layout. We'll add a section title above that because I forgot to add the section title. We'll name this one logos. Keep it simple. And we'll hide it from view. Then in our grid, we'll add some text and some text. This again is going to be my explainer. We'll set it to the side. And this right here is going to be my section title that people see. We'll name it logos to match. Make sure it's extra large and push it to that left side instead. Now we've used the grid to split up the layout of our typography. And now we're going to use the grid just to break up how many logos we have. They don't have a ton of variation in their logos, and I'm going to keep it simple for this length of this video, but we can bring in that grid again and start to drop in logos and build on the things we've learned so far. If I pull in another grid, and this time now you can see that these things are centered and there's ways to align them. I can align it to top, to the middle, to the bottom, and I can add rows below or to the right. I like threes, so we're going to add a third column over there. And then in our first one, we're going to go in and we're going to add a logo. Now, most of the variation in their logos is just white on black, black on white. They have a color version, and most of the time they're just printing on t-shirts or showing up in social media. So I'm going to pull in right away these first two, which are just going to be black versions and white versions of the same sort of square icon. And I'm going to make these both the same percentage size because I don't need this logo taking up the whole thing. And in our first version with the white dot, it makes a lot of sense that that background color matches. In the second version, it doesn't make as much sense. So we need to add a background color, which we can do and pull from our colors right away. I'm going to let it be this mid-gray. Now, even though I like threes, it's sort of a mistake to put it in there because there's just like an A version and a B version of every logo I'm going to add. So I'm going to get rid of this column by just whacking the delete key. Now the grid section really lets you build like bento blocks, so you can stack and morph and do whatever, but really it's functioning in columns. So if I have this grid here and I choose to add one below on this button here, if I add below, it follows right below this one. Now that makes sense in this version, but if I go to my mobile version and I scroll down, you can see how it tiers. It pulls everything in that first column first, second column second, and that's not quite the order that I want it to have when I go to my mobile version. So I'm going to remedy that in my desktop version just by removing that block, and then I'm going to add a new grid underneath it. This grid is going to look really similar to the previous one. I'm just building it so that my blocks shuffle the way I want them to. So these are two grids stacked on top of each other. That way when everything shuffles around or somebody's stretching their screen all out of whack, it's doing what I want. So we'll add the white version of our next logo, as well as the black version of our next logo, and again change this background color really quickly. Then I'm going to go in and add one more grid. And this is going to be the full version. Now I could mix this up and bounce this back and forth, but I'm just going to let it be clean and do it sort of quickly for you here. Now, similarly to our typography section, we can add downloads to each of these blocks so that a client can look at what they're trying to download and just click that download button. Not only that, but we can give it to them in the versions they need. So if I'm in this first one that has logo here, I can scroll down to the bottom and I can again add downloadable assets. So if I just add the one that I have used here, I can upload it and it sits just as a PNG. You can see it gets that icon in the color in the corner, which again, we're gonna have to change that color. But then again, I can add the screen versions, I can add the print versions, I can add any other versions, like if there's an animated version or whatnot. Anytime a client needs something, they can just go and say, oh, look, I need this version because I know what it looks like and can't describe it. No client can describe it. But I can go to this site and I can download it for web because I know it's going to be an online banner, or I can download it for print because I'm sending it to a shirt manufacturer. Whatever it is, I can add any of the versions there, and I can make that icon nice and visible so that we don't have to like say, look, it's a white icon on a white background. Instead, we can just make each of these downloadable, super simple, super clean. Through the power of editing, I'm going to add the next section, and we'll just explore some of the last sections available to you in Bravemark. So some of the sections we haven't used yet in Bravemark are the image, and we haven't used social media or video, we have used the space. So in our image, let's say we drop an image down here. Honestly, it's just a way to break up the flow of your brand guidelines. So if you want to have sections based off of images, you want to compose something in particular, then you can do it in an image. I'll upload an image here, and this image could be used just as the visual break, be used as the divider. We can leave it within our borders, which is sort of nice when I'm going to feature something, or I can use it as a cover if I don't like the edges for whatever reason. And I can keep going on, maybe this says typography and it has an example of typography. Or maybe it says like print collateral, business cards, letterheads, etc. So I show my mockup of those things. Whatever it is that might help your client understand the next version or like the section that they're getting into could be useful here as an image. You can also use the image in the grid. So if you want to break up your flow of your guidelines, you have an image next to the typography or an image next to, I don't know, some text, whatever it might be, you can use those next to things in your grid and use the grid as a sort of organizing component throughout the project. The next one we haven't talked about is the social media block. So I'm going to pull in the social media block here. And what this does is it automatically pulls in the sort of mock-up media of like what your stuff could look like. This module over here then lets us customize it as we sort of anticipate. We could say our social media platform name. We can change the style of the images that are going to be in here. So they could be stories if we want to feature stories, or landscape images, portrait images, square. I'm going to do portrait just because it fits really nicely. We can upload a profile image. Maybe we change the background section here because we have white UI. Let's make this our soft gray instead, just so it sits a little bit softer. And then we can change and edit each individual one. So if I upload an image, I can also then go in and change the post description and make this whatever sort of preview that I might want to have, just so that people can see what your stuff looks like. And with a few simple customizations, you can immediately show what this would look like in social and how your brand is going to look and how their stuff is going to look. Now note that this is automatically default to crop whatever image you drop in based off of the media version and media settings that you chose at the beginning. So I chose this portrait one. This image is much taller than that portrait frame. It just crops right to the center, no big deal. This image here is landscape, and it also just crops to the center. Again, no big deal. I made these images ready to show you how these images are going to crop and use in the social media section. The last one we have to talk about is a video section. At this point, you should have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen here. There's module titles. You can choose a link to YouTube, Vimeo, or a Loom. You get to set your aspect ratio, whether it covers this, whether you can hide controls, whether it starts playing on its own, video max width. All these things are pretty common sense about how this builder works. If you're a huge agency making like really visible and awesome guidelines, then you can drop things in here. I don't have a video for Elite, so there's nothing that I'm going to drop in here at the moment, but maybe in time I'll go back and drop this in as a header or a section breaker or something else. Now remember at the beginning I said one of the benefits of a Bravemark account versus a PDF is that you can keep it updated and just run with it. So if somewhere down the line somebody starts to tweak the red, you can just come in easily and tweak that red. Or if you are working on an ongoing retainer and like constantly delivering new deliverables, you can go in and add new sections. Here I've added additional assets because they're always asking for campaign materials for new camps and organizations. They're always asking for new materials for shirts and apparel and what have you. I would break these down and you could just constantly update and keep the newest materials online while removing anything old and say, this isn't the shirts from 2022 anymore. These are the 2026 shirts. This isn't the camp material from 2020. This is the camp material for the 7th version of this camp. Whatever it might be, I can keep it updated and keep it moving and living this amazing document that can help manage our assets and add value to what we're doing as designers, and also just make it easier for our clients. And now we've built something that is useful for our clients, easy for us to upgrade, navigable, and just like built itself as we went along. And frankly, the most useful thing we're going to deliver to our brand and campaign clients, and something that adds value to us as designers. Lastly, we can go ahead and publish this project. So we can add it to our portfolio, or we can just let it be private. I'll add it to the portfolio so that if you want to go in and break down everything and see what it's actually looking like, or if it's changed, which probably will happen since I've made this video, you can go ahead and check that out. Now I'll choose that vanity URL. We talked about this being really specific. Theirs is long, but here it is. So here it is in all its glory. It's full width, it has no UI. It's laid out really well because we spent the time to do that. I can really easily copy my colors. I can click on these and copy to clipboard. I could download these files. Here's my Antonio version. I can read the comments, use this one setting large bodies of text. Awesome. You can download any of these versions of these assets. Again, this comes in handy when we're downloading our logos. I only added one. We'll add some more later so you can see what those things look like. So that's a step-by-step breakdown and walkthrough of how to build some basic brand guidelines in Bravemark. The free plan, again, is perfect for anybody who wants to try it out and see how quickly you can do this. If you are going to try out Bravemark after this video, you can use the link below if you want to give me any sort of affiliate credit. Otherwise, don't click that link and just go visit it yourself. I'm just here trying to help designers make better choices and deliver better work to their clients. If after this you're like just drooling to get started with Bravemark and you want to start publishing these for past clients, or you can use this as an upsell and say, hey, former client, here's a $30 a month, $100 a month, $200 a month upsell that we can add to your existing retainer, then go ahead and use the code Overmatter25 to get a discount on your plan so that you can start making even more money. Like, who doesn't want that? This makes the affordable platform even more affordable. Plus, it pushes your margins an extra 25% if you're going to move some clients onto a retainer version for having some brand guidelines. Go build the guidelines as you design and see how your client reacts. I guarantee they're going to be impressed, and it's going to make your life that much better. Catch you in the next one.